Coming up on McKnight tonight, the federal government announces big fines of $50 million in its effort to ban under-16s from social media. But they've got it all wrong. Smile, you're on Bunnings cameras. The hardware chain in trouble for using facial recognition. But look what they're dealing with. Osher Ginsberg opens up about his drug addictions in a compelling interview.
You know, the really, really bad stuff happened mostly when I was in America and I was mostly off air.
And why I think you must be a psychopath if you're a fan of Tweety Bird. Welcome to McKnight Tonight.
McKnight Tonight. McKnight Tonight.
It's wrong again.
McKnight Tonight. McKnight Tonight.
I've seen that since university.
Fun, insightful interviews from a watchdog to some McKnight Tonight. McKnight Tonight. McKnight Tonight. Here comes McKnight Tonight.
Hello, I'm Rob McKnight and welcome to McKnight Tonight. Yes, that jingle's going to get in your head. What are we doing here? This strange video has just popped up in your feed unannounced. Well, I'm doing a bit of a pilot tonight. So if you've come across this, you're just going to see me playing with some format ideas. You're looking at the technology because we are in my home studio. Fabulous, isn't it? You wouldn't know it's just a chroma key screen. But basically tonight, I need some feedback. So if you could help me out, and as you're watching the topics and as you're hearing my opinions on things, if you agree or disagree, let me know. All you have to do is put your feedback in the comments section of this video. It's nice and easy. We'll scoop them all up, and throughout the course of the show, multiple times, we'll actually have a look at what you're saying, and it could help facilitate the conversation and make it go further. But before we get into our hot topics, let's take a look at what happened on this day in history, which is, of course, November 21. In 1798, James Roos became the first convict to receive a land grant. Governor Phillip gave him 30 acres at Parramatta in April 1791, and it's a familiar name for friends and family of mine who grew up in Campbelltown. In 1877, Thomas Edison announces his invention of the phonograph. Ah, how many Kylie Minogue albums have I listened to over the years on the good old record player? Many of you might be saying right now, wish he hadn't made it. In 2019, Tesla launched the Cybertruck. Do you remember this? Things didn't go according to plan, though, when its unbreakable windows shattered during the demonstration. Let's have a look.
Sure? Yeah. Oh my God. Well, maybe that was a little too hard.
Should we try the door?
Sorry? Okay. It didn't go through. So that's a plus side.
Let's try the right.
Try that one? Really? Okay. Sure.
Oh, man.
It didn't go through. All right. Not bad. Room for improvement.
There certainly is, Elon. And now he's running the world through the presidency of Donald Trump. That's going to be interesting. In 1980, 350 million people around the world tuned in for the television's popular primetime drama, Dallas. They all wanted to find out who shot JR. It was one of the best promo lines ever devised and got the world talking. And I never watched it. I remember the hype, but I wasn't a Dallas fan, although I was only 8 at the time. And on this day in 1941, one of the most diabolical cartoon characters made his debut. This character would hide behind a sweet, innocent face, but inside would prove to be one of the most psychopathic characters ever seen on the screen. Of course, I'm talking about Tweety Bird. A character worse, I think, than even the serial killer Dexter. Now, you might think I've confused Tweety with his arch nemesis Sylvester. There he is, but I haven't. The difference between the two is that Sylvester acts on instinct. He's a cat who likes to eat birds. He is simply following his evolutionary path. But Tweety, he is a cold, calculated monster. He hides behind those big blue eyes, but his evil plans bring pain and misfortune to Sylvester time and time again. There's no doubt Tweety is the smarter of the two and is never at risk of actually being eaten. Instead of using his brains to avoid Sylvester, he plots revenge in the nastiest possible way. And it strikes me, anyone who loves this character, well, you're probably a psychopath. You're drawn to a character like this. Can there be any other explanation? And on that note, that is this day in history. Share your thoughts. Do you think Tweety's a psychopath? Let me know by leaving a comment in the video section. Well, Labor introduced its controversial social media bill into Parliament today that would ban every Australian under the age of 16 from using popular apps. We also found out companies would be fined up to $50 million for systematically breaching age verification laws. The idea has bipartisan support, with the Prime Minister saying the proposed legislation, well, it's all about protecting the kids.
Social media is doing social harm to our young Australians, and I am calling time on it. The safety and mental health of our young people has to be a priority, and my government will do all that we can to protect our young Australians, but also to provide support for parents and teachers who are dealing with these issues.
For the kids. Now, the idea has divided many, with the charity organisation Save the Children calling it a band-aid on a gunshot wound. It goes on to say Save the Children Australia stands with children, young people and experts who are urging the government to pursue measures that create genuine online safety rather than merely excluding children and young people from digital spaces. For more on this, we're joined by 6 News anchor and owner, Leo Puglisi. Leo, you are not a fan of this idea, are you?
No, I mean, I get the need to protect young people, right? But I'll agree with the Save the Children statement. It's a bullet on a gunshot wound. It looks like they're doing something. In reality, this isn't going to work, and it's not going to remove any of that harmful content that the PM keeps talking about.
Yeah, look, I am not a fan of this legislation and the proposed legislation, but there are serious concerns about the impact of social media on young people. So what is the solution if there is indeed one?
It's a good question. I think the PM has said himself there's no silver bullet. I'd agree with that. But I think better education is just something that you can start with. Telling young people not to never ever use social media, but how to manage around it, how to deal with harmful content that they might see. And then also better education for parents so they can understand the difference between TikTok and Instagram. I think that's really important, just so people are on the same page. And from there, you can try and work with some of these platforms to implement measures that maybe go along with their existing guidelines. I think most platforms have it as no under 13s allowed. That's a pretty reasonable measure. If this ban was talking about that, I'd be more inclined maybe to support it. But when we're talking about under 16s, it's just getting a bit ridiculous.
Look, I agree with that. Here's the thing. I think the onus should be put on social media companies for everyone not to be trolled, not to be abused when something's reported, to get rid of it, fake accounts. The problem is there's no incentive for these big media organizations, these social media organizations, to get rid of any of that because they make money from it. They make money from these fake users who are advertising, and their numbers are higher because of all these fake accounts. So until we put the onus on them to actually fix the situation, I agree this is a band-aid solution.
Yeah, and it's tough, right? We know that Facebook and Twitter haven't had the best relationship with the federal government in recent times, and I think that might make things hard to implement. Not saying they will, but we saw with news a couple of years ago that Facebook isn't exactly afraid to pull, do the nuclear option in Australia and just completely abandon it. As much as I like talking up Australia, they're not going to listen to a state government as a giant global tech corp. So look, really, yeah, there's a lot of things that platforms could and should be doing better. I know Instagram recently did their teen accounts, and I'm cautiously optimistic about that. If that can be implemented successfully and safely, I think that'd be a much better move. But really, it's just no other options. And the fact that we've had some supporters of this ban be like, oh, well, there's YouTube Kids. YouTube Kids is for like under 7-year-olds, right? A 15-year-old trying to study homework isn't going to be using YouTube Kids. Just take a step back. And that's the real problem with people who didn't grow up with social media trying to make laws about it.
Well, speaking of people who didn't grow up with social media, you recently fronted up to a joint select committee in federal parliament to answer questions about this proposal. You joined via Zoom, but you're talking to full-on politicians. How did you find that experience?
It was fun. It was weird to see my name in Hansard. I really enjoyed it, and look, I think at times it was just answering kind of basic questions, but I appreciate the chance to have that consultation. I think there needs to be a lot more consultation with young people, though. The coalition has talked about trying to rush this through by Christmas, which would be even worse than I think the current proposal. This is something that has to take a lot of time. And remember, we're talking about technology here. You cannot just change all this technology in when's Christmas? 4 weeks. You can't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you handled yourself really well talking to these politicians. Let's have a look at your brilliant answer that you gave MP Andrew Wallace. I love this moment.
An analogy that's been drawn is, well, we set road rules. We know that people are going to speed, but we still say, well, on this stretch of road, 60 kilometres an hour is the speed limit. If you go over that speed limit, then you're breaking the rules and you'll be fined if you're caught. But we don't just say, oh, well, we know people are going to speed, therefore we won't have road rules. Do you accept that there's an analogy to be drawn there?
I can see that analogy, but I think there's, other analogies you can bring in about, when there's danger in the water, we don't teach kids to stay out of the water, we teach them to swim, right? We teach them to deal with social media.
Mate, you were very impressive. Were you nervous?
It was a bit weird. Well, I was waiting for 15 minutes for them to start, and I was just listening carefully. It was stuff about you had all this information provided, and I think there was an exchange with the same MP about whether I'd provided some kind of statement.
Yes.
I hadn't. Which I was wondering. I was like, have I done something wrong here? But no, it was fun, and I really appreciate that opportunity. To have that. Experience, I think, was really important, and I'm glad that the Joint Select Committee was able to do that. I note also they made in their own recommendations that I don't think they actually supported a blanket ban either.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I am always skeptical these committees listen to the experts they bring in, but it actually looks like you might have made a difference, because as you just said, the inquiry, and here's the article from The Guardian, it has stopped short of backing the social media ban for under 16s. It's a good result, but it's unlikely to stop this going through, right? It's got bipartisan support. So the likely scenario is under 16s are going to be banned, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and we'll see what the coalition, I guess, does. I know there's some internal debate. There are some coalition senators who don't support it. Matt Canavan's been opposed to it for one. I'm not sure if Alex Antic supports it either. But look, for what it's worth on the bipartisan level, that was a bipartisan committee. So there clearly are, it seems, some views within at least the major parties that may not be supporting it. I know in their rank and file there's not full support for it. And I think, whether the coalition, even if they choose to use it as maybe a wedge thing, we'll wait and see. But really, I think I hold out some hope that it doesn't go through. And again, they're talking about implementing it in 12 months. A lot could change in that. We talk about a week is a long time in politics. Who knows what even the government will be like in 12 months.
True. Very true. Leo Puglisi, thanks for your insights. Appreciate you joining us on McKnight tonight.
Anytime. Thank you so much.
Geez, he's absolutely amazing, isn't he? Let me know what you think. Should the government be doing this social media ban? I just can't fathom it. I just don't know. My kids have a whole life on social media, and I've got a 13, 15 and 18-year-old. And so two of my kids would be banned from social media. And I actually don't mind them using it. It's about being responsible. And as I said to Leo, we have to start holding the social media companies to account. When there is a problem, they have to act fast. We've seen the whole sextortion thing on Facebook. That's been reported extensively on Spotlight, where Facebook allows these people who are sextorting young teens to the point of wanting money, and some of them end up killing themselves. Using social media isn't the problem. Having a place to go when there is a problem, that is the problem. Making these companies take more responsibility, that is the issue. This is a solution that won't work because any kid with a VPN is going to get around them. I don't know how Australia is actually going to stop it. Anyway, moving on. Bunnings is in trouble for using facial technology in its stores to capture the face of every person who entered its 63 locations in New South Wales and Victoria in the 3 years to November 2021. SBS reports the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner ruled the retail giant breached privacy laws when it used CCTV-linked facial recognition technology, or FRT as it's known. Bunnings Managing Director Mike Schneider says the company started using the technology to tackle shoplifting and violence in its stores, saying in a statement, FRT was trialled at a limited number of Bunnings stores in Victoria and New South Wales between 2018 to 2021. The strict controls around its use with the sole and clear intent of keeping team members and customers safe and preventing unlawful activity. As part of its defence, the company has put out a video showing its staff being threatened by customers while explaining how they're using FRT.
We can't emphasise enough that we used FRT for the sole and clear intent of keeping our team and customers safe and preventing unlawful activity by repeat offenders. Of course, everyone deserves to feel safe at work or when they're shopping in our stores. No one should have to come to work and face verbal abuse, threats or physical violence, or worse, have weapons pulled on them. But the sad reality is that retail crime is on the rise. We've seen abusive and threatening encounters in our stores increase by 50% in the last year alone. FRT was an important and proven tool with the intent of keeping team and customers safe and preventing unlawful behaviour by repeat offenders.
I have to say, I'm completely with Bunnings on this one. While I do believe in the right to privacy, when you enter a store, you're on their property. Security cameras are everywhere anyway. It's an accepted part of life. How is this any different? And if it helps protect staff from these thugs, I am all for it. In her ruling, Privacy Commissioner Carly Kind acknowledged the potential of the technology to protect against crime and violent behaviour, but said, however, any possible benefits needed to be weighed against the impact on privacy rights as well as our collective values as a society. Look, I get the idea, but on this one, I think people lose their right to privacy when they enter a premises. I'm more concerned about the data big tech has on me than Bunnings knowing that my face belongs to me. And we've just talked about what's going on with big tech. Facebook, Google, TikTok and the like are taking all that data and sharing them with third parties who are doing God knows what with it. In fact, the TikTok algorithm is so good, a lot of users believe the app knew they were gay before they did. Users like this one saying, it took me 29 years to figure out I'm gay. It took the TikTok algorithm 10 minutes. Surely that's scarier than anything Bunnings is doing. Bunnings are simply trying to keep their staff and customers safe. Again, I'm a big advocate for privacy. Just because you post something in a private message, I don't believe it's for everyone to consume. But I just don't think Bunnings has done anything wrong here.
It's the Random Life Shot of the Day. Where are you going today? You never know where you'll end up with the Random Life Shot of the Day.
Tonight we're taking you to Namibia, where it's 18 minutes past midday. Temperature-wise, it's set to hit 33 degrees today after a low of 17. Now, this waterhole lies within the Gondwana Namib Park, where a variety of animals will gather. Looking at this feed, I've seen giraffes, ostriches, wildebeests, and more. I love this live shot. Okay, let's take a look at some of the feedback coming into McKnight tonight. And we've got Matthew saying, love the starting graphics. Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, they work pretty well for what is a pilot. Thank you for your feedback. And anyone commenting on the ARR Facebook page, can you go over to TV Black Box on Facebook? Because we've learnt we can only do one Facebook channel at a time. Kyle Laidlaw says, I don't think the fully thought out these laws. This is the under 16s ban. He says, I don't think they fully thought out these laws. Already backflipping on apps like YouTube, etc. Can see what they're trying to do, but seems a little too late. Yeah, I agree with that, Kyle. Who else have we got there? Okay, we've got Ross saying this law is draconian and definitely an example of government overreach. I'm totally for looking for a better solution to keep our kids safe. This is not the way. Let's take one more. Jason says, I fear what will happen when Trump and Musk turn on one another. There is too much ego involved for them to be genuine friends. They'll stay in each other's good graces until they no longer find each other useful. Jason, I couldn't agree more with that. It's going to be very interesting watching that. You know, we've seen in the past that Elon really had a go at Donald Trump. He said a lot of disparaging things, and now they're best buddies. You really do get a sense that Trump likes the campaign. And it's funny, I've been watching Saturday Night Live, and it's sort of hate watching. I sort of like bits and I hate other bits because these sketches go too long. But they did make a really good point where they had Trump there with Biden, and Trump said, "Oh, yeah, now I've got to do the work. I love the campaign, not so much the work." So I think that sort of summed it up. It'll be very interesting to see. All right, keep sharing your thoughts in the comments section of the video. But for now, let's turn to a ridiculous, and I mean ridiculous, idea coming out of Adelaide, because a proposal is being discussed at council to introduce a citywide speed limit of just 30 k's an hour. Have a look at this report from 7 News on the issue.
3 options were floated in a controversial council meeting last night. They are a blanket 30k limit for all city streets, 40k's for most CBD roads, or a mixture of both. But either way, change is expected.
I think that this is just the beginning of the conversation, but over the decades, generally speed limits have reduced.
And it has city users divided.
I definitely don't agree with it. If you're clogged, you're not travelling at 30, you're travelling at 0.
There's a lot of people jaywalking.
The Lord Mayor says the city would be much safer if there were a reduction to its speed limits, and there's evidence to support it. If a pedestrian were to be struck by a vehicle going at 30 kilometres per hour, they have an 80% less chance of death than if it were travelling at 50.
I don't mean to be rude to that reporter, but of course, if you reduce speed limits, there will be less impact. No one disagrees with that. But this idea that 30k speed limits are the way to go, I mean, we're really, a horse and cart will go faster. And the guy in there that said, "Oh, it's clogged anyway." Yeah, okay, sometimes it is. But a lot of times it's not, and you can get through a city. And this idea of only doing 30 kilometres an hour, it is hard enough to do 40 or even 50. Now, I'm not saying we should speed through city streets at 80 kilometres an hour, but there has to be some balance. You know, not all streets need to be 30 kilometres per hour. I mean, if we're on a wider street with multiple lanes, you don't need to do that. And what about pedestrians taking some of the responsibility? And that leads me into what the Lord Mayor said. Have a listen to this.
We've just got to find a way of compromising so that we all can be safe in the city.
How about this for a compromise? How about this? What if we just get pedestrians to do the right thing and only walk across when the light is green? Now, look, I've jaywalked, you know, I'm calling the kettle black. But if I get hit by a car, if I walk out onto the street and I get hit by a car, that is on me. Now, it's not great for the driver who has to deal with the consequences. I understand that. But this idea that we're trying to bubble wrap our whole society, it makes no sense to me whatsoever. We just need to learn to take responsibility and also accept you cannot baby-proof the entire nation. We just need to understand that in life, bad things happen. We can't protect against everything. Anyway, let me know what you think. You know, just leave a comment in the social media. I'll get to some more of your comments in a moment. But now it's time for a very special interview. Well, as a reality TV host, Osher Ginsberg is the good-looking guy in charge, not a care in the world. But now the popular presenter is opening up in a new documentary that explores the world of pain. Osher, thank you so much for joining me.
I'm happy to be here. I'm sorry I don't have a bespoke coffee cup. Well, the best I've got is a water bottle. And it did have my name on it from like a security pass when I went to go. I don't even know what television network I went to, but my name was on there. Anyway, thanks for having me.
It's the details, mate, like knowing how to pronounce your name correctly.
I'm impressed that you've got a full newsroom. That's all I've got is a library.
I know. You'd never think I'm in my garage, would you? Hey, mate, this doco, it's really, really good. And it's a very personal story for you, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very grateful that SBS wanted to make another film with us. The first film we made was about suicide prevention. And it's bold when you walk in and go, hey, I want to make a hopeful film about suicide. Okay. And we ended up doing. And it won it was a great film, and it won a really big award, quite a prestigious award, which is kind of cool. And that does help one get the second one off the ground. So when it came time to get the second one up, we wanted to look at something which has a similar kind of societal impact as suicide does in our community, and chronic and persistent pain was one of those things.
You are very open about your own addiction struggles in this documentary. Is there a sense of freedom being so public with your own struggles?
Oh, I think, it's like anything, man. It's like any. I mean, what's Crisis Comms 101 is own it. All right, because if you own it, then it's yours to then hopefully have far more control over. And
does that mean you were getting on top of it before any stories came out, or
I was very lucky that? Oh no, I was very lucky that I was able to, the really, really bad stuff happened mostly when I was in America, and I was mostly off air in Australia. So I was able to come back to Australia earlier in my sobriety in a very different person, which I was happy to hear. I was happy about. But I think it's important because if you look at it and go, look, there it is, there's a thing, that was a problem. Treatment is available, treatment works, and now this is what life looks like and what life can look like. As my man tells me, he said, you get to live the rest of your life not being that guy anymore. And it's extraordinary to imagine that there's another side, there's another possibility, there's another way to live your life outside of such things. And prescription painkillers were a part of that, kind of final slide into realizing that I needed to stop drinking and using. And I was using such things fairly off-label, like a really long way off-label, but enough to know that they can be a problem. So when I started experiencing my own, started experiencing very, very intense pain, I knew that those things were not a long-term solution for me. So I needed to find other ways that I could manage things.
Well, good on you for that. And you do talk openly about it, and I really admire it. You mentioned your wife, Audrey, in the documentary. Now, I knew her as a makeup artist at Studio 10. Everyone loves Audrey, so you've done very, very well.
I'm very lucky.
But you mentioned that you sometimes rely on her to hide medication from you.
Oh, yeah.
How does she handle that pressure?
Oh, it's not pressure at all. It's not pressure at all. And, that's the thing. A lot of people really don't understand addiction. And
no.
We're really lucky as creatures, as humans. We have three separate brains inside us. We have the really, really, really primitive one. We have the kind of language and kind of process one. And then we have the higher looking down upon those other two brains. And that higher one is the one that gets to look down at the other two and go, right, I know that if I get in a stressful situation, it's like if I said, hey, Rob, put both hands in your pockets. Now I'm going to push you in the back really hard. Do not pull your hands out of the pockets. Do not stop your fall. You'd be like, sure, no problem. I shove you in the back, your hands fly out your pockets. All right, you can't actually stop it. Okay. Yep. So the best way for you to deal with that, so you're not in that situation, so you don't have that reaction, is to take a step to the side and just be out of the way. So similarly, if I'm in a stressful situation where my defenses are down, having someone else to take care of that decision-making part of my thing, it's not a burden in any way, shape or form. It's just to know that
I didn't mean it as a burden.
Oh, no, it isn't. It's so for example, I'm traveling this week for work. I will check into the hotel room in Melbourne, and as I check in, I'll say, can you send someone upstairs to take the booze out of the room, please? I'll do that every single time. Now, I haven't had a drink in 14 years, 7 months, and some 20-something days. And I'm not about to start, but it just stops that little spinny beach ball in my brain, that kind of takes away just a little bit of that RAM, now gets to be redeployed for things that I would like to do rather than having that there. And it's similar to that, and it's quite useful.
It's interesting. My whole family gathered around to watch the preview of this. We had to stop, and watch it in two halves because life. But my 14-year-old really wanted to come back and watch the second part. She was really, really into it. At the club was a little bit dicey there for a moment, but it was all good.
Rob, I'm here to tell you that whatever your teenager was watching on our little documentary is nothing compared to the stuff that they've been shown on someone else's phone in the back of the bus.
I don't want to hear it.
Then, Rob, you need to understand that having that conversation is very important.
No. I'm actually joking, but I absolutely agree with you.
Kids are sexual beings before we're ready for it. Sucked in. We better 100%. Be ready for it.
100%.
You know?
100%.
We have to have those conversations early. Buddy, I know it feels nice, but that's something you need to do in your room. Okay, mate? Okay, off you go. You've got to. You've got to. You can't make it weird. You can't make it weird.
100%. 100%. What I was going to say is that one of the things my wife and the girls all were captured by in the documentary was the mismanagement of chronic pain. That is a big element of this documentary.
Oh yeah, and that's it. It can happen through, you know. I'm not saying any of that mismanagement is negligence. Not at all. It's probably just misunderstanding or, you know, not being able to understand what might be going on, or that you actually can advocate, or asking your doctor for, is there someone else we can speak to? Is there something else we can try? Is there another? I'm not liking the way this works. What other options can I have? Not understanding that we are able to have those conversations with our doctors. I got very lucky. I had both my parents were doctors, and I watched them advocate for themselves, and also B, if they didn't know the answer, ask another doctor who was smarter in the area that they weren't not so smart in. So deferring to expertise, but doing that also enrolling you. If you're enrolled in your own feeling better, then that's also gives you some agency. You're not relying on other people to give you permission to be okay. Once you start taking some responsibility for it, it goes a long way to take away, in my experience, take away the helplessness and the powerlessness of it all.
Well, it's a great documentary, but before I let you go, I've got to ask you about The Golden Bachelor. Mate, You've been so associated with The Bachelor. How are you feeling with another brand coming back and you're not part of it?
Excellent, because there was 105 people. There was 105 people. I think we made about 105, 106 people. Let's say it was 105 who made, I think we made 21 separate seasons of that franchise. And I'm thrilled because 104 of those people still have jobs. And that is so lovely because I've known them for a long time. I've seen people go from, you know, runners to camera ops. And that's, you know, people who've, you know, gotten married and had kids and, you know, become directors. Like, it's just brilliant. I'm thrilled for all of them, every single one of them. And my former manager once told me that, you know, unless you're hosting the 6 o'clock news one day, whatever show you've got, no matter how big it is, you're going to get cancelled. And what are you going to do after that? And so, you know, Audrey and I we knew it was coming, all right? And in this gig, it's a fast yes or a slow no. And as the yeses started to slow down, we kind of had to look at each other and went, I reckon we got about this long left. And we started, you know, just putting plans in place. And so that when it did happen, and we actually knew it was happening quite a while ago, we were able to execute those plans and keep the boat afloat. And I'm thrilled. It's a great show, and it's, you know, people love it, and I'm excited for what everyone is going to do with it. I can't wait to see what they make of it. I can't wait to watch. I'm stoked for Sam Armitage. She's going to do a cracking job.
Well, mate, the media industry is tough. We all know that. All of us who work.
I chose it. I chose to be here. You know, Hyman Roth said to Michael Corleone, "This is the business we have chosen." Like, I chose it. I could have just gone and worked in a bank, all right, and done 9 to 5 and Dolly Parton and gone home. I don't know, man. I don't know how to do anything else. And this is a part of this job. I've chosen to work in a seasonal industry. This is the gig, man. It's all right.
You're speaking my language. I fully understand. Osher, the documentary is called A World of Pain. It's on SBS and SBS On Demand. It's really, really good and well worth taking a look. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man.
I find him fascinating. Thank you, Osher, for doing that. It's just so refreshing to have someone in the media who is so honest and just puts their troubles out there. I don't know him very well, or at all, really. So I appreciate him doing this and being so honest. And that documentary, it really is good. And I think it actually launched tonight, matter of factly. Check it out. It's called A World of Pain. Osher Ginsberg's A World of Pain. All right, let's take a look at the feedback that you guys have been so kind to keep bringing to us tonight, and I do appreciate that. Matthew on the whole Bunnings facial recognition issue says, I am with Bunnings. I'm just trying to find my music button there. Who else have we got? Jason Turner says, it's been talked about in Brisbane too. This is the speed limit, 30 kilometre an hour speed limit. that we have in Adelaide being talked about. If it comes to Brisbane, it will do my head in. I'm on the Gold Coast here. What else have we got there, Amanda, as far as feedback goes? Justine Durbin says that's a quick way to stop tourism in Adelaide. Very, very good point. Thank you, Justine. Over the page, we've got Dylan saying, I live in Adelaide and I think this is stupid. The streets are clogged already and will only encourage more people to not go into the city. It's a really good point. They want people to go back into the city and every time they make it harder. Matthew says cars are safer than ever, but speed limits keep dropping. Yeah, it's so true. And again, we need... Well, here we go. Clint saying roads would be much safer if pedestrians weren't crossing the road while their heads were buried in their phones. Clint, I've got to tell you, I am guilty of this. I was in Sydney the other week and I was walking down the stairs to catch a train, and sure enough, I was doing this, checking emails, and I misjudged where the end of the stairs were, and the platform was crowded, and I fell over, rolled onto my back, and it was one of those scenes where people weren't laughing. They were genuinely worried about me, but I was fine. I'm made of thick stuff, and yeah, I made an absolute fool of myself. So that was fun. But a lesson for the kids. All right, before we wrap this show up, it's time for a back-end quickie. This is where I bring you some short news items from around the world. Let's start in the UK, where a 63-year-old man has been arrested for a cheese heist. Yes, but what got me about this story was it didn't just call it a cheese heist, it called it the cheese heist of 2024. That was the copy in the story. It's calling it the cheese heist of 2024. How many cheese heists have there been that they have to qualify it by saying this is the one from 2024? And what are they going to do if there's two one year? NPR reports tens of thousands of pounds of highly valued cheddar was stolen from a major distributor. Now, this has been such a big story in the UK. Even Jamie Oliver has made a video about it to explain how serious this situation is.
Now, you're going to think I'm joking, but I'm not. There has been a great cheese robbery. Some of the best cheddar cheese in the world has been stolen. 22 tons worth has been stolen from some, I don't know, robbers that basically pretended to be a French supermarket and basically done Neil's Yard Dairy over.
And I believe that we have a picture of the alleged mastermind. Oh la la, I was the French man who went and stole the English cheese. I was unrecognizable. I can't believe that that someone dressing as a Frenchman or posing as a Frenchman was able to do that. Anyway, that one was just for me. All right, let's move on because we're heading over to Sweden now, where one person's phobia has led to bananas being banned from meeting rooms. Gender equality Minister Paulina Brandenburg's staff, they insist on rooms that are free of fruit ahead of any meetings or visits. This is according to reports. Now, apparently, banana phobia is a real thing. It can cause serious symptoms like anxiety and nausea and can be triggered by seeing or smelling the fruit. In that case, let's hope no one slips up on this. No one slips up on this. Slips bananas. Finally, have you heard about this No Nut November thing? It's a real thing. Basically, it's a challenge that's gone viral where people try to go the whole month of November without pleasuring themselves. Now, in the interest of science, I gave it a go, and I think we have a picture of me after day one. Yep. I didn't last long. All right, that brings us to the end of this pilot episode of McKnight Tonight. My thanks to Leo Puglisi and Osher Ginsberg for joining me. Thank you to everyone who sent in feedback. No one knew this was coming and you've jumped on and you've helped us out, and there's been a lot of feedback, so thank you for that. Feel free to let me know what you thought by sending me a message on the socials. Thanks to everyone who took part. Bye.
McKnight tonight. It's good night from McKnight tonight.